Normally we use the say the best for last. Oh, never mind.
Anybody that has, I'll just kind of.
You better get.
Do you guys have anything you want to say first, or you just want to answer questions?
Fire away.
We'll just answer questions. Okay, okay. I didn't know, was there anything new or different that you thought needed to be added, or any reason?
Made a ton of changes this
Okay.
year.
Okay.
I didn't see hardly any yellow on this at all.
What about the board? Who's got questions?
I have
Scott?
a general comment. So, first let me say, there's a lot of information in these handbooks. And all of them are well written, just, a few tweaks here or there. So I appreciate all the effort that went into it. It's not easy, but a large improvement over the first draft last year. So I appreciate what everybody did. And I'm kind of old school, so I like printouts, but I know that a lot of this will be online and people will access it online. But anytime you have a hyperlink in here, you could either spell the URL out fully or use the wording that matches it if you search it rather than a self-made title. It would help. And then I noticed that, Tricia here, I noticed that we didn't have any assessment information in any of the handbooks. And I don't know if the calendar will be out when the handbooks are released, but I think we should have something in all the handbooks about the assessment, especially K through 8, because of iRead and iLearn and the checkpoints and all that. And I'm not sure how much detail should be in there, but I know it's important to the students and the parents, the timing and all that, being prepared. And we always make a big push when it gets close. But I would like to see, along with the academics in there, also the assessment, some information. I think that would benefit our students and parents a lot. And then the only comment I have is on page 24. If you have it in front of you or not. There are a few other ones, but I think they've been corrected that I had earlier. But under definitions of harassment, you got A, B, C, and D. C says examples of sexual harassment and it's blank, and then D has may include limited following, so I think maybe that C just needs to come out. But other than that, I think everything else looks good or has been corrected. Thank you.
I have a question. First of all, I echo the thanks in putting all these together. So on page 2, the section on student allergies is great, makes perfect sense. My question is about, and maybe this is just something for us to consider, so other conditions in which children could have an event, diabetes, hypoglycemia, epilepsy, seizures, do you feel like we need something for how to manage those? I'm thinking it's something that happens suddenly that can be an emergency. Is there some sort of, we may not even have to say those conditions specifically, but if the student is experiencing a medical emergency, do we want or need language like that? I'm not saying that we necessarily do. It's just something I thought of as I was reading it, and my nursing lens too.
They all have a health care plan that the nurse puts together,
Okay.
and the staff has that information, and the parents come in. So we could put something in there generally about.
That's if they have the existing diagnosis. So that would be great. And then I think also if a lot of times when we have conditions like epilepsy, diabetes, because kids are at school so often, that may be the first place they present with symptomatic. So just even a sentence or so about, in the event of that the student is having what appears to be an emergency, just to cover the nurses a little bit. And if there is a seizure action plan on file, you don't need to call 911. But if we don't have that on file, it could put the school at a liability. But also, it's really embarrassing for the kid to have an ambulance called. So those are just, it's not a critique. It's just something to think about. And I'm happy to talk to you after. Okay.
Does anybody else? I'm fine.
She's the Lone Ranger. This is middle school. Anyway,
Okay, we will move on to middle school.
Hi.
Do you have anything you want to present, or you just want us to ask?
One correction, so I went through everything again today just to double check, and on page 33, I found an error. In the substance abuse policy, it says grades 9 through 12, and I, marked that to be corrected, so.
All right, does anybody have any questions or comments?
I have a couple.
Yeah.
Same thing with the assessments, if you can put that in there.
Would you like us to be consistent, like, the same as the elementary, like as we put this information with them?
Well, yeah, but since yeah, whatever fits the seventh and eighth, but yeah, if you guys could organize that or coordinate that, I guess.
We can just add it, and we'll do the assessment calendar for you.
Yeah, you can put some blurbies in and put the calendar in, because we have it a couple ways, so I think that would be beneficial. And on page 13. If I can find it here. Bottom of the page, it talks about visitors. And it says all visitors must check in, and then later on it says students are not permitted to bring visitors. So students can't bring friends with them to school, right? But we encourage visitors, but if you're visiting your students, you have to come in on your own, whatever. Yeah. Okay. And then on page 17, I guess these numbers are so good. So this section is on immunizations and medicines and all that. And 16 it talks about immunization, and then 17 it goes to use of medications, self-administered medication, and then hearing and vision screening requirements. And then after that first paragraph, the next three paragraphs deal with immunization. So I think maybe they should be moved up to page 16 under the immunization section. It talks about the chirp and a few other things. I think those are all specific to immunization and not hearing and vision, if I read it all correctly. So maybe that could be pushed up. Page 20, at the very bottom, last three letters, CDC, kind of got hung out there maybe. I'm not sure what that, does yours say federal funding, CDC? So I don't know if that was a note to somebody and it got hung on there like voting chatter or something. Page 22. So I like this section on student expectations. It's got hallway behavior, restroom behavior, cafeteria lunch behavior, sporting events behavior, suspension, non-compliance. The one about substitute teachers is great. I didn't know if there needed to be a section on classroom behavior, we touched everything else except the classroom, so I didn't know if you needed to maybe specify something there other than dealing with guest or substitute teachers. And then on page 23, cafeteria lunch behavior number 9 says all students must remain in the cafeteria for the duration of the lunch period. Do all the students eat lunch in the cafeteria? They don't eat anywhere else?
All students eat in the cafeteria other than if they've been assigned to the lunch detention, which is.
Okay. Okay. And then number 44, page 44, not number, page 44. Out of school suspension. If I can get there. Bigger computer. All right, so it says that an out of school suspension is a serious disciplinary consequence. one that we hope every student will use as a genuine opportunity. So it sounds like we're hoping that students experience out-of-school suspension. So I would maybe say if a student does have out-of-school suspension, we hope they use it. Or our hope is that no students ever experience out-of-school suspension, but if they do, we hope they use it as an opportunity. So it just kind of, when I first read it, it's like, we hope everybody experiences this because it's a chance to grow. Make sense?
Yeah, we certainly do not hope.
Right. That's what I was thinking when I read it. I said, wait a minute, we hope everybody takes advantage of this because you can really grow from it, but it might be best if a lot of them do experience. That's my last comment, thanks.
I have none, but does anybody else?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so mine is on page 42. The unexcused tardy to school and class. So I understand the in-school suspension for class, but for these kiddos, they don't really have a lot of control over when they're tardy. I mean, maybe they do, maybe they don't. But I just wonder about a conversation around if they have an unexcused tardy to school, if half-day in-school suspension, what's that going to solve, right? So, and I'm asking you because I don't know. These may be standard things that you do, and I don't know. Should that be coupled with, and you have parent-guardian contact, does that mean like you get together and you talk about like how to prevent this?
Yes, so
Okay.
we follow any student that has excessive tardies to school, we end up meeting with the parents.
Got it. Okay, so I read the contact just as we're going to tell your mom you were late, when mom probably, knows that you were late. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so generally speaking, once we notice that a student is tardy excessively to school, then we will bring the parent in.
Do they keep getting the in-school suspensions though?
If it continues, like once we've had that meeting and, if it continues. So one thing with the prosecutor's office and like our partnership with the truancy panel, once a student reaches middle school, it is the expectation that the student get themselves to school. So like when we meet with a parent, if a parent is bringing the child to school, we will say, suggest that the students start riding the bus so that they can ensure that they get to school on time. Because once they get beyond elementary school, the responsibility falls on the child.
So, and that puts it in more context, and I know this is not a read on you, but I think there are so many things that can be going on in a home that make a kid late that the kid can't do anything about, and I know that's not you disagreeing with me. I'm just wondering about, what I would hate to see is a kid who's dealing with something in the mornings also get a half day of in-school suspension, right? So it's sort of we don't know, it may not be a design, and I know they're technically supposed to be responsible, but there could be 12, right, in 7th grade. And so that, I don't know if there's anything we could add in terms of a support to keep them out of the half day in school. I'm not telling you that's what you should do. I'm just thinking about, are there ways that we could keep them from, if they truly can't do anything about it, the child, I hate to see them then taken out of class. You know what I mean? So that's just maybe something to consider. But that context of knowing that this is not just contacting mom to say you were late, and also the prosecutor's office is helpful.
Did you say they have the meeting before they get the in-school suspension?
Yeah, like we meet with parents to discuss.
To see where the problem is? Is it
Yeah.
just the kid?
Yeah, and we offer, we do an assessment to determine whether there are barriers to the child getting to school, so that we can provide community supports if
Okay.
to help that child get to school.
Yeah.
We offer, our family engagement specialist, a lot of times she will offer for the family to call so that we can send school personnel out to get the child if need be and stuff. So we
Yeah, and I understand having it
School buses.
sort of as a rule, but as long as there's someone sort of following up with the child to make sure that we're addressing, is there a bigger issue that the child can't control? My only other question was about, does it say that the cell phones need to be in the lockers? Is that, So
Yeah.
I realize they can't use them in school, but feel like they should have them. They should be allowed to have them on their person and off in case there is an emergency.
Most of the kids.
Even if they're off,
They have to be
they can't be put away in a backpack.
turned off,
Indiana.
stored, and inaccessible.
As of July 1st, Indiana. law.
Language is inaccessible.
But-
and
Turn
not-
off, turn
But
off,
if it's
stored,
in a-
and inaccessible.
If it's in a backpack that's not
That's
near
accessible.
them,
What if you put them like in the, like they used to do, like put them in the basket in the front of the room?
right, like I'm just
That's
asking for the
inaccessible.
I'm just asking for the possibilities. That may not be, but when I read inaccessible, I can see that not being in your pocket, not being in your Chromebook. But are they allowed to have them somewhere in the room, but they can't reach them during instruction? I don't know the
They
answer
can't
to
have
that.
them- They can't have them accessible from bell to bell.
So we do not
It's from bell to bell.
permit students to have backpacks in the classrooms. So our students keep their backpacks in their lockers during the day. A lot of students don't bring backpacks. They just simply bring their Chromebooks in
Mhm.
once they get to middle school. So our expectation has been that the cell phones are off and in their lockers, starting with the 8:03 bell up until dismissal.
Okay. I was just wondering if there's any way we could be in compliance with the inaccessible and not having it.
No.
Let me just finish my thought. And not have it completely unavailable to them in the event of an emergency. And maybe we can't, but what does it say in a pouch?
Yeah, I mean, some of the exceptions are if it's in like a pouch, or like those pouches that you can't get cell signals, but I guess you'd run into, you'd have to go back at the end of the class period, and then they would have it on their person going to the next class. So, I mean, if you're in a situation where you didn't change classes, I think that would work, but I guess if you've got to change classes, they would have to be getting it back, so.
Okay.
I don't know that would.
I mean, if it's a legal thing, then we.
Yeah, you have two options. One option is they're stored, turned off, stored, and then inaccessible. And then they offer a second option, is you say they can't bring them to school at all. I mean, that's the only two options they give you. But the Department of Education is supposed to, by the end of the month, provide guidelines. And so it'll depend on what they come up with. It's part of the law. By the end of this month, I think they have to come up with guidelines.
Yeah,
So-
some way to interpret what
to
inaccessible means.
what that exactly means. So I think it's around that word, inaccessible, that I think they want the Department of Education to.
Yeah,
define.
I mean, just as a
The School Board
parent, too, I would
Association
like
came
them
out
to
with
have their-
guidelines, but.
Yeah.
I have another question. Dress code, do you have someone assigned to be responsible for dress code violations, or does the teachers just know and they take care of it?
So if it's something really basic, a lot of times what we find is students that are in violation of dress code, a lot of times they have a sweatshirt or something in their locker that they can simply go to their locker and put on. So the teachers address those within their classrooms and just have the student go to their locker and take care of it. If it's something where the student doesn't have anything available, then they send the student down to the office, and usually they meet with myself or Mrs. Claggett, the school counselor, and we help them. We have we call it the icebox closet, and it is full of actually brand new clothing that we're able to provide whenever it's necessary.
Okay, back on the electronic devices. In yellow, you got depending on laws. Should this say based on current laws, may need to be updated, or
What page are we?
40 or 26?
So we understand that, like, the current law is likely changing.
Yeah.
So depending on what the language is at that time, then I think we made a note in here that we would need to update.
Okay,
this.
is that just a note that won't be printed on it? Okay.
And I'm not blaming you for the cell phone thing. It just came off that way, I want to be clear on that.
I will say that our families and our students do a great job.
I just didn't want you to think I get it in the context of the law and that it's not unique.
Seems to me the biggest issue at the junior high is outside the building is the traffic safety. Are there any repercussions for anyone who violates that repeatedly as far as traffic flow? Not necessarily the student, but maybe the parent who's dropping them off. Not that we need traffic, police outside, but one after doing that for several years, one person can screw it up for a lot of people.
They do pretty well in front of building drop-off. There's not much of an issue there. Usually me and either Ms. Wagner or Mr. Logan is in the parking lot where the buses come. We don't allow any cars through there. There's no more students. The one issue we have, we tried to address it. The police department will send somebody to set where once in a while on 15th Street, people stopping there. And if one of us goes over, it just takes us away from one of the kids that's in it. So we try to explain to parents, first of all, you're parking in a lane of traffic. Usually your students open the door into the lane of traffic. It's just a bad situation. It has decreased, but it's zero.
Again, so the question is this something parents are made aware of, and there's repercussions if you don't follow them?
One thing that's helped is the gates that we have up now, they're locked. And they're told if they're dropped off anywhere around there, they have to go to the front of the building. So they're not gaining anything by stopping them off of 15th Street. That has limited the law. That since we have the buses come in the mall lot, they can't walk 15th Street into that area. They have to go all the way around. So the gates has limited a lot.
Because that's something that's very building specific for the junior high compared to everything else we've got. The second question is then, and still in regard to that, I don't know how to put this, but has there been a study done to know that we're doing the best possible traffic flow around that building?
Not formally, informally, yeah. They've
Because I know the police would probably have to be involved, but
we've looked at it, about the city shut the street off for school time, and then you got a couple of houses, residents there, which causes a problem, as well as emergency vehicles. They've looked to change one lane with parking, that just won't open up another Pandora's box. So, when an officer is sitting there, if they see it, they will occasionally stop the car. You know, as parents, but it's depending on how busy they are in the morning, if they have an officer there, because a lot of times they're sitting over on 16th Street.
I mean, I know it's a little off subject because I didn't necessarily deal with the handbook, but again, that's why I go back to, do the parents know
Yeah.
there's repercussions if you don't pay
Usually
attention?
at the start of the school, we have a meeting with all of them.
Or back to school open house.
And that's one thing we hit on there, that they cannot go into the gym that way, they can't come in the mall, they have to go in the front. It is against the law to do that. Of course, you know that, some of them do it, some of them don't. It has been, since I've been there for 8 years, there's a big decrease.
Our mornings look good. Right now, the one issue that we continue to have is between M Street and O Street, when parents are picking up and waiting right there. The kids see that their parent is on 15th Street between M and N, and they want to go ahead and walk down there and load into the vehicle. And again, they're loading on the traffic side because it's a long lane. So that's probably the next priority because, like I said, our mornings look much different than what they have looked in the last several years. So.
Thank you.
Does anybody, anything else from high school?
I might follow up with you after just about the tardy thing.
Yep.
Just to, I mean, it's not questions, but just to understand how that works. I just don't want kids to be in. And I know you don't.
That's more directed toward habitual offenders though, right?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right, you have to have 6
You're right.
before you go in there. Absolutely. I'm just, if you're 12 or 13 and you're a habitual tardy, there's a good chance that there may be things outside of the kid's control. There may not be, and sometimes the parent can't do anything about it. But if I don't want a child to be double punished, and I know that you don't either, if they want to be at school on time, but there's something at home that's keeping them from it, even if there is a bus, there are there are still things in the
They've got to do what
homes.
their parents tell them.
They have to do what
Whether
the
they ride
parents
a
tell
bus
them,
or
or what there
Yeah,
may be
they can't get
They have to do
themselves.
what
there
the
may be a
parents tell them.
situation where they're being asked to watch a younger sibling. They're not getting them up on time. They're
Wait till the
just
parents are ready to leave.
right. Wait till the parents are ready to leave. So I just don't. I understand that it's not something we want to promote being late, but at the same time, I don't want to see a kid, punished for something that they really had no part in. And I know you don't either. So.
Please know that those are like very few and far.
Oh, I know.
between.
Right. That's not that many
I
kids.
had
Right.
one student that I met with this school year, and I said, how can we get you to school on time? He said,
Yeah.
you need to put me in school. So it's one of those things where for some, they need that motivating factor, but others, yes.
Right, yeah, and-
there could be some circumstances that.
And I'm glad that it's not a common frequent issue. I'm really glad about that. I'm just thinking about the kids who may not have at that age particularly.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Must have been a good question if I made her turn around and look for help.
We want to do high school?
Let's go first.
Yeah, we'll begin. We want to make sure that we include all the URLs for our hyperlinks, and also we'll include an assessment section.
Excellent.
Yes, thank you. Now, fire away. Anything you got, we're glad. I've not seen Miss Redmond, and so,
Do you know about it?
okay. I was gonna say, I don't know that I can answer many of the career center, but the others we're here.
Who wants to go first?
Oh, I will.
Okay.
No backpack policy. Is that a new section?
Yes, sir.
Why?
So it comes from really a school safety situation as well as a classroom environment situation, and so our teachers recommended this policy, and we worked through it and developed this idea to include it into this handbook for this school year. So that would be new addition to it. So.
With the time period between classes, is it feasible to go from one class to a locker to another class?
And the bathroom.
And everything else that students need to do without,
Yes,
I mean, I know you're not carrying books like I used to have to in the 1980s,
Correct.
They do have those. They do have those.
but yes,
Correct. Yeah.
So-
No, there's still books, and there's
Yes.
Chromebooks, and there's personal materials that
or 70s actually.
students may have as far as that goes. As far as the answer of feasibility, yes, for my recommendation, I would think that there is ample time. There would be times between two classes that may not be feasible to do all of those things. See a friend, go to your locker, and use the restroom. And so that's where a part of the time management responsibility as young adults is developing that as well.
How many minutes do they have between?
There's 5. Yes, it's a 5-minute passing period.
Not for now, yeah.
Yeah, and so part of that from drilling down, if you guys are okay within the classroom environment, the footprint of the classroom for different engagement strategies has become smaller. Less classrooms are sitting in direct rows. So some of that flexibility is limited with student backpacks. Also, we run interference with students not using their lockers at all, so they have an excessive bag, or they have multiple bags with them that then crowd the aisleways for just safety. But also, to be honest, it's also an impeding factor for teachers' mobility around the room to work with students or collaboration and things like that. And so those are a part of the essence of where it came to be and why we recommended it in this handbook.
So, as a parent of a child with a giant backpack, I get it because when he brings it home, I'm like, how do you carry this around? it seems though like if the issue, I get the issue for tripping and movement in the classroom, could we not solve that with a storage issue within the classroom? Like when you get to the room, get your supplies out and your backpack goes, behind, versus, and I know that it may be possible in the 5 minutes. To me, that sounds extremely stressful. Having been a student at B&L a long, long time ago, that just sounds really stressful. So I'm wondering about how there should be policy around where you're allowed to put your bag. You can't throw it in the middle of the aisle. You can't, leave it in front of the teacher's desk. But if there's a designated place, and then if they don't do that, and they don't abide by that, then there could be disciplinary action. But I think that might be somewhere in the middle where they could still have their backpacks with them, because I do think there are reasons that they might need the backpack. One of which is not feeling completely stressed going. And like, my kid might not even say he's stressed. I would have been stressed as a B&L student if I had to go to my locker.
Some of our classrooms certainly would afford that opportunity.
Mhm.
Others would not, just based on the layout and the size and the number of students in there. So
There wouldn't be like a wall to put you mean there wouldn't be like a clear wall to
Correct,
put
yeah.
them on?
Well, I know 5 minutes.
some of them, yes, but not all.
Right, I know some of them, but
So I know 5 minutes sounds like a long time, but I did that when my daughter was a freshman or sophomore or whatever, when we could go to all their classes. And I did that with her, and I walked, and we went from one end all the way to the other. There's no way. And and we're like, walkers. And there's no way we'd have had time to go to a locker during some of those. And maybe between some, yes, but when you've got totally opposite, and plus then, if you do have to use the restroom, there's just no time. Yeah, especially for girls. It just takes longer, and they have to use the restroom more. So I just.
I wore my backpack.
well, it's not about smoking. I mean,
No, it's
girls
about-
have
Yes, more needs.
they have requirements that take longer.
Right.
And I don't want a girl or a boy to be stressed because they're going to rack up tardies and they're going to end in school suspension, because it is a huge building. And I understand the meaning behind this is not to make things difficult for students. I realize that.
Is the possibility of having classes one in the building, the other in the building, is that more of an underclassmen thing, just because they have so many, as you get more zeroed in on your major or your diploma, then you might have more classes close together. Would that be more of an underclassmen issue? It's not.
No, I
It's
no,
all
I
over.
And then, like I said, I think what we said earlier about
yeah, the gyms and
time
extension,
management, it's a good thing to learn, right? But
the health classrooms are
Anytime you can't
extensions.
sprint, you can't run.
Exactly
Carry your
right.
book. So sometimes it's
We
not
can.
a time
You can.
management issue. No, you can't. You get in trouble for running. I'm sure they're doing that somewhere.
No running in the hole.
Exactly.
yeah, but if we can't, if we don't have the wall space to put something, we still want to make sure that it's away from them and they get their stuff out and leave it alone.
Yes,
But,
yes.
however we solve it. Right?
So the back,
And many of the desks have the undercarriage,
Right.
but it's not quite big enough for a backpack. And so, and those are just, the things that we're working through, and that's where it comes from, and certainly why now, because it's something that our teachers have talked about in the recent past, the last few years. That pendulum switches more with that new Senate Bill 78 with the cell phones, and so moving back into a locker culture, because we've moved away from it since Chromebooks were established, and textbooks are not as plentiful as they were, and so students have utilized their locker less, and then moving back to it. I know in the middle school they don't use them at this point, and so that's kind of a natural transition. Certainly high school has different experiences and passing periods.
just more ground to cover, and I think a reason a lot of them don't use the locker is because they are afraid of being late.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, part of the environmental factors that come from that is loitering in the hallways and loitering in the restrooms, because 5 minutes then is oftentimes a lot of unstructured time for some of our students as well. So those are just
Well, it can't be too
all
much
the
if it's
reasons.
just 5 minutes. The whole
For a teenager, it
yeah.
can be.
I mean, I guess I don't have a problem with, as long as they're not doing, as long as they're not misbehaving. You know, if they're talking in the, I think that social development is appropriate, and of course they want to talk to each other.
It's just not in the doorways or not in the
Right.
stairwells.
Right, of course. You can't stand around and block doorways, absolutely.
Most of the lockers aren't even near the classroom.
Correct, yeah, they're not.
So they was
They
set
have
up in
been,
the
yes,
seventies
they have, yeah.
that way, and it's
So-
just still the same way. That's what
With
makes
the
it tough to walk.
refurbishment, all upperclassmen lockers are upstairs, and that's where 3 of the core departments are with science, social studies, and English.
Why do the teachers not like it again? Is it mostly for security? Why we don't want to allow backpacks?
Safety certainly is a part of why many schools have that way, but then also is the safety of environmental factors of just hazards. Moving
Okay,
around
so-
the room, mobility.
Is there just, this is just a thought, but would we ever allow kids like a open, not an open backpack, but a backpack you can see through, plastic? I mean,
Yeah, that would eliminate any concerns
Do
of
we-
like weapons.
would we consider allowing that? Like a backpack you take into a stadium, it has to be open, clear.
Yeah, so
That's
that
something to
would-
look
that would-
into maybe to
Yeah,
let
certainly
some,
shift. Those are things
some
that
may
we
not
talked
want to,
about,
but
and
I
and a
would.
part of the
I guarantee you
backpack
I'd wear a
policy
backpack. I'd take a backpack with
So
me.
what,
is not an exclusion of all bags specifically, because certainly there are things for students to need to be able to carry for organization, and those were kind of explained in that policy there. So the reference we used was a bag about the size of a sheet of paper, was kind of that idea, 8.5 by 11, so.
so they're supposed to be keeping their cell phones in their lockers now?
That is the policy in which is
That's
written
what's
in
gonna
this
be
handbook, yeah, it's
happening.
being
Okay,
recommended.
and now we're gonna make them go to their locker more often, so they're just gonna be on their phones probably. There's gonna be that temptation, obviously. They're making them go to their locker after every class, so they're gonna be checking their phones every time they go to their locker now. So,
But they only have 5 minutes.
but they only have 5 minutes, so unless they have to go to the bathroom,
Yes, but it also then,
figure that out.
If they were smart, they wear Apple Watches and
the
go right to
policy
their
behind
purse.
it, right, is also, that there's also that sense of safety as well, that I know that many of us are worried about with cell phones as well, so.
Is that a question to ask?
What's that?
What percentage of
I don't think you can have Apple
No,
Watches.
Apple
yet.
Watches.
Yes.
No.
Okay, all right.
any kind of
So I can
recording
get around
device?
that
It's not
pretty
just
easily.
those
Yeah,
two.
so smartwatches,
Wireless recording
devices,
device, these
AI,
personal computers,
glasses,
iPads.
all of those things are embedded within what we call cell phones.
You know what percentage of the students bring backpacks to class?
I do not,
Okay.
I need to carry my son's because it's at least 50 pounds.
yes.
There's no doubt about it.
Makes them stronger.
He carries it around all the time.
I appreciate you guys considering, that is the biggest shift within this handbook, and that conversation, and
Hey, I'm in total agreement with it. We didn't have backpacks when I was at VNL, and our lockers were on the bottom floor, and our classes were on the top floor, and the gym was not connected to the rest of the school, so.
so I'm told that was.
And we had up and down staircases.
What about, this was actually Scott's idea. What about hooks on the wall or some other storage? It'd have to be a sturdy hook, I realize.
Some of, yes.
Including my kids. But if there's I understand we don't want to have like the floor full of these bags, and that would make it hard for teachers to navigate, and I think that's the problem right now. But if there's some sort of, or even right outside the room, I'm thinking of those cubbies we had in kindergarten. But just thinking about different storage, with the understanding that the goal is to keep them not underfoot, because I do understand how that could be very frustrating for a teacher.
It would be nice to know approximately what percentage of students do that, so that we could kind of gauge the
Zero now.
severity of the, I mean, just,
I'm talking out loud. Zero
Okay.
now.
you're talking,
Oh, after this?
No, we still have students use lockers, and we have many students that carry backpacks, and there are some that don't, so. Yeah. But as far as percentage, I can't give you any
okay,
informal numbers.
that's fine.
We can certainly do a poll.
Just look around and give us a,
Yeah,
just ask the
a
teachers.
lot, a little.
Just ask the teachers,
Yeah.
a lot, medium, a
Yeah,
little. That's good
Yeah.
enough.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
A whole bunch, or oh my goodness.
they'll know,
Um,
because they're the ones dealing with it. Sorry,
And
Matt.
it's
I didn't
interesting, I
mean to-
think it was Mr. Yancey was out in the cafeteria. And even there, so we have an A, B, and C lunch. A and C bring their materials, B often don't, because they're going from a class to lunch, then back to that class. There is a noticeable difference just with the number of backpacks just in those spaces and how much more room there is, just in the cafeteria when you eliminate those monster bags for so many students. But their success is priority, and that's what we want to create is a culture to breed that success for the students. And all this is to improve that learning environment. It's not to take away from the student in any way.
Change the subject. I'm gonna change the subject, is that okay?
You got it.
On page 33, and I don't know if this has been corrected yet, but page 33 and 33 and 34, we have our mission and vision.
Mhm.
It might be better if those are up towards the front of the document, like real early, as opposed to stuck in the back. Maybe after your introduction and the school song or something.
Yeah, part of our goal is to try to align with the table of contents with elementary and middle school, so there's more of a flow in its reading. However,
It's getting closer.
the high school has an additional number of these things, and so I think maybe even pushing this entire section to the front may be helpful.
I agree.
And creating this section, I don't remember what section number it is. Section 5, instead of maybe making
Yeah.
it 5, making it 1.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll look at that, but we may certainly split up this section as
Sure.
well to put some of those things.
Okay.
Yep.
And on page 19, lunch detention, disciplinary tool. The last sentence says repeat visits to lunch detention may result in additional action. I think they maybe should say repeated assignments as opposed to visits, because you probably don't have visitors to detention, lunch detention. It sounds like you're stopping by as opposed to being assigned to it, so I would just suggest, yeah. And then
We do get visitors from time to time. I think often
official visit,
here.
official visit, oh, okay.
But yes, we certainly.
You don't just stop by.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, at the very end, you have the bullying report. It's also on page 17, so I don't know if that's a duplicate of that.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, so we included the bully report after the bully section,
yeah,
but then we also keep it with the NLCS policies in
well, that's a requirement. Oh, the bullying policy says put them back?
the back. I don't know, that's just where the NLCS policies are
Oh, okay.
as well.
Oh, I get it.
not
Okay.
only-
Yeah,
I don't know that we need to
but
duplicate.
yeah, the report is, but not the whole policy, so I just, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine if there's a preferred reason for it. Thanks.
Since you included the athletic handbook as your part of the high school, are you taking
Yes.
those questions too?
Yes, we will as a team.
Okay, I have a couple on those,
Mhm.
as you might expect. Is quitting a problem, that we have a new section on people quitting a sports team?
So I think
I would say no, not a problem.
it's not a problem. It's more of quitting or joining a sport. We found that putting those together, just my experience, we've had a lot of kids join sports late, which is fantastic that we have kids coming out. But having literature on there, I think prevents us from getting into a situation where Johnny quits football and then takes the uniform and then goes and tries to do another sport. I don't think that it's a large problem, no. But again, just having that verbiage in there helps should there be an issue with it. Just to elaborate on it. To answer your question simply, no, quitting is not a large issue.
Substance abuse policies. Is vaping included under tobacco and nicotine?
Yes.
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so I assumed it was.
And
Okay.
if it's not written in there, we can slash vaping. That's not.
Okay, so the offenses then were, I think, did I read it right, 25% of a season? Or, no, excuse me.
Of
One
regular season
one
games.
competition, okay. For
Yes,
tobacco is
10%,
one
yeah.
competition.
10% and
10%.
25%.
But if you report on yourself, that gets reduced.
Yes.
Correct, the honesty clause.
Is that new? That's in number 4? That was,
Must
okay.
have been in there last year.
And some of those certainly are also out of school infractions is where that honesty policy, comes in.
Like parties at their lake or wherever they do that. My viewing of it is that there are sometimes I hope that it's leveled across the board. I've seen instances where certain people got less of an infraction than others, so I want to make sure it's uniform.
Absolutely, efficacy is extremely important, in dealing with those situations, and that's where these policies take that precedent to try to eliminate whose kid it is or the scenario around the situation.
Yeah, I think having it written out that this is what it is, the prior handbook, to my understanding, was kind of vague in a sense. Having all of these extra policies and extra verbiage eliminates that almost entirely. If it's in the handbook, this is what it is, doesn't matter what your last name or first name is.
And I just wanna make sure I'm clear on this, so if an athlete gets in trouble for the cell phone, dress code, parties, or other minor infractions, they get the same penalties or whatever as everybody else, but then when they get to their third infraction, then they get something extra because they're athletes. Am I reading that right? So this will be,
Yes, I believe that's how it reads as well. I think that there's
until the third
additional.
infraction, then after the
Yes.
fourth infraction, the student athlete may face
I've not heard
additional
one for a long time.
consequence.
In my experience, at that point, if you do it one time, two times, three times, it becomes, I just lost the word. Yeah, habitual, thank you. And we're clearly not getting the message, 1, 2, 3, so we're gonna, take it to the next level.
Well, I like a lot of these changes that we've added. I think we made a lot of improvements last year, and then this just makes it better.
This isn't sports related, this goes to the first offense for the cell phone violation. That's page 8. I think the in-school suspension is harsh for your first offense. But that's just me.
Me too.
Yes, and one
Maybe
of the
lunch.
things in here too, that happens naturally, but based on the conversation, is that parent communication piece. And we've even kicked around this idea of almost like a cell phone contract for our students that accumulate a number of things. And so trying to put these ideas of parenting agreeing in there. So, I mean, even like once you've reached that, third offense, insisting that the parent not return the phone to the student to school, initiating some of those things as well, so.
So you don't think it's harsh? Apparently.
Me?
Yes.
No, I do not.
For a full day of in-school
I do
suspension.
not, but,
Do you get to
I
make up your
understand.
work? Do you get to make up your work when you're
yes,
in
yes,
school
yes, yes,
suspension?
yes, you get your,
Okay.
you get your work, you get your credits. And the reason for that is to also become a strong deterrent. We have attempted after-school detention, which feels harsh for students, but it doesn't take them out of class. The trouble we run into is the efficacy of it, because there are so many bendable rules because of the parent need, that we're unable to do that consistently for every student. And so then it's like you have to trade it for a lunch detention, and then no longer is that quite the same affect of an after-school detention, and then in school. Now, certainly, we just want students to abide by it, and our students have done an incredible job with the integrity of the policy this year in the classrooms and in the hallways. Certainly, they are permitted currently to have them in the cafeteria under the new bell-to-bell Senate bill. That won't be the case, and so just changing some of those cultures is going to be, important for us at the beginning.
Like anything else, they'll adjust once they know the consequences.
That's our
They'll
hope,
have-
right,
they'll
with the handbook.
they'll
I
have
mean, obviously, it's our conversations and our encouragement of it that hopefully convince them so that they don't have to infer a consequence, because we don't want them out of class. That's the least thing that we do.
Question about dress code. Do we have personnel that are responsible for enforcing the dress code, and then are the teachers held accountable if they see it and
Both,
don't?
yes.
Okay.
And so, many of those things, much like at the middle school, and Ms. Wagner shared, if it is easily repaired, the student and the teacher often take care of that in the moment. If it becomes a pattern of concern, then certainly the administrative team, along with the counseling team, address those things.
Okay. So, yeah, my major concern is if it's noticed, is it addressed? I mean, that's the first step. Are we good at that first step?
Some are great, and certainly there's room for growth for us in order to do that. But if it's, and this is what we share with teachers, if they're uncomfortable addressing the dress code infraction, then they certainly need to notify the office, and we will address it.
Okay.
So that brings up a point of, and I mean, if I live by the middle school, and I actually don't see those infractions by the middle school, but when I'm also at the high school picking a kid up, and I think there's definitely not even 50% maybe addressing of the dress code, which I don't want to argue about should we have a dress code or not, but what I do want to talk about is if it's in the handbook and we say if you have a cell phone out one time, you're going to in-school suspension, but you're wearing a midriff top and nothing happens, that is an issue to me. Is if we're going to have the rules, we have to. And again, I'm not saying that I think we should have a certain kind of dress code. That's a totally different conversation. But if it's in the handbook and we're going to be very strict with all of these different things, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't be, but we have to be consistent, or I think that's a problem, and it shows that we value some things and not another. And I also understand the difficulties with trying to manage the dress code in a school that large. I totally get that. But I think we have to come up with a way to do all of them the same. Would be my only concern with the dress code. And I don't know if there is. I know the teachers are really busy, and like the last thing they can do is manage a dress code. I know the counselors are not. I think also when you have a counselor, there's that relationship of, the counselor's there to help support, and I can see where the counselor wouldn't want to be the one to feel like, well, that kid's not going to come to me now because they don't feel safe because I reported their shirt or whatever. So I don't know the answer to that, but I think we have to abide by all of the handbook rules the same, would be my only.
Disagree.
I just had a question about the false reporting paragraph, and I think that's in everybody's handbook, but I just thought to ask you, sorry. About, how did that come about? Like, is this an issue of people, like, making false allegations against employees or other students just to get somebody else in trouble? Like, has this been an issue lately, or just always been an issue, or never an issue?
That's always, that's been consistent in the handbook, and I would say mostly it's a non-issue.
Okay.
There are times though when students get creative and create what we would call a rumor, and then that becomes problematic, as you can imagine, in certain situations.
Is that just typically with other students or against faculty?
Mostly it's students.
Okay.
Yeah, mostly it's
Because
students.
I think there's where, like, that's
Yeah.
a big issue, obviously, if it's against an employee or
And
staff member.
our two policies of the school's pregnant, central harassment and those having to increase the consequences.
Yeah.
Those policies. I think the junior high one is we need to.
Okay, does anybody have anything else for the high school or athletics or anything?
Nothing from Miss Epping, please.
should be in school suspension for that.
Yeah. Do you want us to ask her something, Matt, just so it's
No,
not?
that was good. That was good. She got in the.
All right.
Just for
Yeah.
Gateway? I have-
Yeah.
is it Gateway?
Oh, Scott's got one.
She's got one in the
Okay.
scores box. That's all that matters.
So on page 3, I believe, talks about alternative to expulsion. And on that one, it might be maybe one other place here it mentions middle school, but here it talks about the junior high participants will continue to be connected. So is that significantly, directly with the ATE, or does it fit other areas in this Gateway Academy?
So we have students who come from the middle school who are alternative to expulsion, keeping them in the school building with an instructor. So it's typically 1 to 3 students who can sit and continue working through that work. Students, when they are expelled or suspended, a lot of times do not progress in their schoolwork, and so that is an opportunity for them to stay with someone who can help them with their courses. She's in contact with the teachers, takes them over when they need to get work, and can just keep them progressing through their coursework there. So we have her, Tanita Moore, that works with those students.
Okay, so the alternative expulsion is the only time you would get somebody from the middle school? Okay, thanks.